Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Mr. President, as you know, and as the circle knows, I came in here in a special election last year, so this is my first budget vote, and very much so I would like to be voting in favor, but I can't. Definitely not this time. Not with the increased spending that is in this proposal. I think none of us in this room plan on increased spending. I know this year alone I have not increased my own spending. I know in my business I have not increased spending. How can I project 2 years down the road to increase spending or plan for more increased spending? I just can't. It just can't be done in this economy. None of my neighbors, none of my family, none of our constituents that we represent every day are literally standing there saying, you know what, I'm gonna spend more money. I think that's a prudent thing to do in this economic time. I think Senator Harp said a very important thing when she said that more cuts can be made. I believe that. I agree with that. And I wish we could have done more, Senator Harp, because I do believe that more cuts can be made and should have been made in this budget. We are all making these type of cuts in our own homes, in our own businesses. My wife works for a nonprofit. They've made humongous, incredible cuts to their services locally. But the big problem is we're not. We're just going to keep increasing spending, and the way to do it is increase our fees, which if you go through this list, I mean, it's incredibly thick. How many fees that we've raised, everything from manufacturing to licenses to, I mean, you name it, it's there. Even the nuns at the Abbey at Regina Laudis in my district at Bethlehem are going to increase fees because they make milk and cheese and all kinds of dairy products. So they're going to see increase in fees as well. The big thing for me, there's a couple things really. The borrowing. I remember growing up, my mom would always say, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think that's what we're doing here today. We're only putting off paying someone by borrowing from someone else. And that's just not the way I grew up and the way I plan my budgets. But I think the big thing for me is the 10% surcharge on businesses. And I know initially we talked about all businesses would see that surcharge. And now it's been scaled back to only businesses that make $100 million. Well, it's been mentioned many times in this room about Pratt & Whitney, one of our largest employers in the state of Connecticut, planning on leaving because of the rising costs and the high cost of doing business here in the state of Connecticut. So I started Googling a few things, and I'm on NBC 30's website, and I see the Speaker of the House saying we are very, very concerned, and we want to do whatever we can to stop these jobs from leaving. Well, this isn't the way to do it. If we're talking about $100 million in revenue, these are the kind of businesses we're talking about. The Pratt & Whitneys, the UTCs, the GEs, the Pfizers. These are the companies that are in that level, in that ball game. And we are all concerned about those jobs. Well, then I think we need to think about this 10% surcharge that we're putting in place. Lastly, I will say that, you know, during this time, since we ended our session in June, I think all of us probably have done it. We go visit senior centers, we go to our Rotary clubs, we speak at business groups, and it seems like, you know, I'm the guy who brings the bad news, and you know, always talking about the budget deficit and how large it is and how bad things are. But I always try to be a positive person. I always try to look for the positive in things and in life, and look for a silver lining. So I always, you know, end my remarks when I speak to these groups by saying, this is our one opportunity to reform how we do government, and we haven't taken that opportunity. So, although I always try to find that silver lining, I think we've missed it. Thank you, Mr. President.